First question, is Indigenous homelessness defined differently than settler homelessness?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and I think because I don't identify as an Indigenous person, I'll have some limitations as to how much depth I can go into this, and with how much credibility and confidence I could address all of the ins and outs, because it's an extremely important, and underneath that fairly straightforward question is a lot of stuff. So and I would steer anyone who's interested in having a deeper dive on how Indigenous homelessness is defined in different ways than it is more broadly. There's a scholar and an excellent both academic and popular author named Jesse Thistle, who's at York University, and he's written some really wonderful work on this topic, and he went through a great process, great consensus process, engaging many people from many Indigenous communities on their understandings of homelessness, as well as Indigenous elders, and landed on a definition that if anyone were to look it up, it's available through the Homeless Hub. It is actually quite distinctly different from the Canadian definition of homelessness, or definitions you might see elsewhere, be in the United States or Europe. So so I guess to dive in and just with those qualifiers in that direction to look into what Jesse and others have been writing, there are some differences, and I think it comes down to some confusion that sometimes is there around what homelessness means exactly, because there is the question of shelter. And as one young woman I interviewed many years ago educated me when I explained to her I was doing some research on homelessness and homeless populations, she asked me the question, "Who are you to call me homeless? I'm not homeless, I'm houseless." And we had a great discussion. She was patient with me, and I felt badly for applying a label that she didn't agree with, and I applied kind of ignorantly. But fundamentally, there are various degrees of lacking shelter. And there's a great European definition of houselessness that really concentrates on just that shelter. Everything from lacking any kind of shelter at all, which is understood to be rough sleeping or sleeping outdoors, right on through to different kinds of shelter arrangements that are just not adequate. Emergency shelters, couch surfing. You might have a roof over your head, but it's by no means your own place, a safe place, a stable place. And it's really a spectrum, right? Home is something a little different for most people. For some people, home and house are synonymous, but home means for many people something more than just a roof. It means a place of comfort, of safety, of belongingness, where a person might feel like they're able to be themselves in a true form. And this is true, I think, for most people, and I think this is where it gets a little murky when we talk about homelessness, because it kind of mushes in questions of shelter and housing as well as questions of home. And we're not often, the greatest at unpacking that in various forums. But getting back to your question, the question of home in the latter meaning, where it's not just about shelter for Indigenous communities. And again, I can't speak for Indigenous communities in any ways, but in any really in-depth way. But for Indigenous communities, as I understand it through colleagues such as Jesse and others, the idea of home and homelessness is rooted quite deeply in one's culture, and its culture is plural because, of course, under the term Indigenous are First Nations, many First Nations, Métis, Inuit peoples, amongst others, with many different histories and cultures, and that is very much wrapped into what home means. And home might not necessarily mean a house. It could mean the land and one's connection with the land. And there's more of a historical lens to Indigenous understandings of homelessness based in histories of colonialization and genocidal violence and the atrocities that have happened there, where it stretches back in time in terms of what's been taken away. And that weaves its way into understandings of what homelessness is. So, and in some very current conversations, as we see our ice cap melting in the Inuit and other far north communities, are sometimes losing their houses, and or going into lower quality houses or leaving the North altogether. But it's a little more tied into the idea of losing a livelihood, a culture, a connection with the land due to climate change, for example. That is a form of homelessness that's resulting from climate change, as well as, climate change is a reflection of colonial practices itself, because of course the most affected are the least polluting often and usually, but then also it is kind of all wrapped up in there. So I'll stop there, and again, acknowledging the limitations of my knowledge on that front. There are great resources to go to that speak to this far better than I. And again, Jesse Thistle came up with a really nice, concise definition and is written about it, and that's a good place to go.